Thank you for that introduction, Heather, and big thanks to Ron, of course, one of the great champions of new voices. So important and not common to be so welcoming to new writers. Very honored to be here tonight reading with the extraordinary Stuart Dybek. My God, do I love your work, you know that. And I'm going to read just a few short stories, really in honor of Stuart's ecstatic cahoots. I am teaching Naked, one of his shorts, to my grads, or using it in my graduate workshop tomorrow, as it happens. So, great treat. So I'll start with the title story from the latest collection, just called Sing to It. At the end, he said, "No metaphors, nothing is like anything else." Except he said to me before he said that, "Make your hands a hammock for me," for there was one. He said, "Not even the rain," he quoted the poet, "not even the rain has such small hands," so there was another. At the end, I wanted to comfort him, but what I said was, "Sing to it." The Arab proverb, when danger approaches, sing to it. Except I said to him before I said that, no metaphors. No one is like anyone else. And he said, please. So at the end, I made my hands a hammock for him, my arms the trees. Excuse me. This next one is called The Correct Grip. A few days after the attack, the wife of the stranger who attacked me called me on the phone. She wanted to know if I was serious about her husband. She said he told her he was having an affair with me. She said she got my number from Student Services. Your husband broke into my apartment, I said, in the uninflected voice that had taken me this far. He threatened me with a knife. Did he use it, his wife asked. He used it to threaten me, I said. Because he used it on me once, she said conversationally. I have a scar on my forehead like a quarter moon. What do you look like, she asked. I told her. I played down my looks, but not so far that she would think that was what I was doing. You could be describing me, she said, sounding pleased. She said, I guess why I'm calling you is to see if I should stay and try to make it work. I told her I could not possibly advise her and gave her instead the number of a women's shelter in case he gave her more trouble. I reminded her what her husband had done to me. She said, would you like to have lunch sometime anyway, my treat? I told her I was moving out the next week. Saying so, I meant it. I hung up and looked for my dog's new leash. The phone call I got before the attacker's wife was from a friend who had stumbled on an exposed tree root the day before, had fallen and broken her ankle. This was in the woods near her house, she said. She told me she'd unleashed her retriever and sent him to get help. The dog had returned with a neighbor who called for an ambulance on his cell phone. I told her that my dog would have done the same thing for me, only stopping first to knock over trash cans and try to get laid. I was dismayed by my impulse to make fun of rescue, but there's something so convenient about rescue. Yet would I not have been spared if the man who attacked me had been made to drop the knife because my dog had been with me and had pinned him to the ground? I found the new leash and set out to walk my dog. In the correct grip, the right thumb goes through the loop in the leather before the right hand doubles over to clutch the extra length. This ensures maximum control and should obviate the need to use the left hand. The correct grip causes the dye in the leather to rub off in the creases of the hand. It strengthens the hand when you form a fist, for when the proverbial pendulum swings the hell back. little one-pager coming, titled Equivalence. The former owner was supposed to fix the door. Instead, he left behind a pool cleaning robot. He said it was equivalent to fixing the front door, though the house had no pool. It had once had a pool, but the seller's wife had been the swimmer, and when she died 4 years earlier, he filled in the pool. At the closing, the buyer's attorney pointed out that the repair of the door was contractually bound. She brought out the contract and showed him. He said you just had to put some shoulder to it. The buyer wanted the house, so she was the one both sides knew would give in. Every couple of months, the seller arrived unannounced to pick up something he'd left behind, a wall phone in the den, canoe mounts in the shed. The buyer allowed him to take what he wanted, then asked for help with a difficult chore. She asked him to turn the mower on its side to drain the oil and double-check the basement's radon remediator. Each favor she asked extended the time until the seller's next visit. The weeds in the garden, the buyer bets that this will be enough to keep the seller from coming back to get the child's blackboard in an upstairs bedroom, the child's name formed by animals carved in the wooden frame. Just one more for right now. I remembered, Stuart, that I think I remember correctly that you once in an interview referred to short stories as jockeys. You called them jockeys because they were short.
My students made that up.
Your students did it.
At Warren Wilson.
Oh my God.
All women, by the way.
Very cool. Well, I like it. So here's a jockey, as it were. The quiet car. That reminds me of when I knew a romance was over. I had not seen this fellow in a while, but he suggested we meet up at the train station and take the Acela somewhere, so I thought we'd have several hours to catch up. And then at the station we boarded, and he led me to our seats in the quiet car. I was glad to have the rented falling down house through the summer. It was a bicycle ride from the beach, and the owner had let me paint the bedroom a grayish green from the Benjamin Moore Serenity collection. The floors were sandy even before I went to the beach. There was no pool, but I still might buy the raft that is a giant vinyl slice of watermelon. The snowbirds are back as of this holiday weekend, not that they are the ones hurling M80s. The president would have us believe the hurlers of M80s are members of MS-13. Supposedly this little hamlet is their base. But I've been here nearly a year and have seen no one threatening. I'm the almost retiree who does not go south for the winter. On the mantle, though the fireplace does not work, I've propped the housewarming present from a friend, a small painting of a house that is on fire. It's a good painting. It's fancy camping here with a refrigerator that freezes food as quickly as the freezer compartment. It can't be fixed, said the repairman who tried on 4 occasions and then refused to let me pay him. My brother, who owns a bakery in the city, is going to visit next week during a convention. I found that the vegetable drawer is the one part of the refrigerator that will chill instead of freeze, so I will instruct him to keep his butter and cream there. He will examine the failed appliance and ask me if I thought to run the adapter for the RL247 through the Omega conductor or the Accurite barometer. It's a running gag that he understands the work of an electrician. I'll say, yeah, the first one. On this holiday weekend, there is a sale on large appliances at Home Depot. I cut the ad out of a circular and sent it to the owner of the house. I bought packets of wildflower and zinnia seeds and sprinkled them around the falling down house. Maybe the rain we can expect tonight will do something about it. Yesterday, where someone had dumped a cat-scratched leather recliner in the weedy, empty lot around the corner, an elderly man was found sitting in the chair, quietly disoriented. The recliner looked like a seat on an Amtrak train and coach. The man did not seem to know where he was or how he got there, but he was not fearful, just quiet. He was able to recite his son's email address and list the son's many accomplishments to the police whom someone called to help. They were kind when they contacted the man's son in another state. But this won't go well, I thought, and chose not to follow the story. Stuart, I understand you're going to read one of my absolute favorite stories of yours. Are you really going to read Pet Milk?
Ron talked me into it.
What was that?
Yeah. Ron talked me into it.
Oh, good. Good, I'm glad.
I always listen to anything he says. He's one of the best editors I've ever met in my life. So, yeah. You know, you read one of my favorites.
I did.
You started it out. I love the book. Sing to It.
Thank you.
It just I think it's a brilliant book. And that piece that you started off with, there's so much, which is the title piece.
Mm-hmm.
It made me one of the things that pops up in all your work, but was really very apparent to me in the book Sing to It. It was also apparent in the last piece you read.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that even though one doesn't find any kind of faux Orientalism in your work, none whatsoever, it's wholly American. Mm-hmm. I just sometimes get these kinds of Zen feelings that there's an Issa poem, Issa haiku, and that first piece you read always reminds me of. So they're talking in the first piece about metaphor, telling stories, and so on and so forth. But underneath it is this incredible human truth. And the way and what the Issa haiku goes is, and he read it after his daughter died.
Oh my.
And from the Al Jolson story on, mortality figures prominently in your work.
Yes.
But the Issa, at least the Sid Corman translation of the Issa haiku goes, only a dewdrop world, yes. But even so. I just get that feeling. It's just so deep in your work, and that piece, as was Sing to It. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I've long loved that Arab proverb. By the way, you know, when danger approaches, sing to it. I got Sing to It tattooed on myself in Arabic script, which is very beautiful. And I wrote the piece for a friend who was very, very, very ill at the time, not expected to recover, but did. But it had me thinking that, you know what? This is not a time for metaphor because no one's like anybody else. You can do it. So that's how that came about. But thank you for that lovely comparison. Appreciate it.
But then going back to the last piece you read, I mean, the part about the metaphor in this is that there's a book called Homo Sapiens that was a bestseller worldwide by an Israeli historian, Harari. And the book begins by just talking about how the human animal lives in stories. And that, and then the last story you read reminded me also of Donald Barthelme, who used to talk about life being composed of dreck. And so you start out with this trip on the train, and then the story just kind of goes through all these various assemblies of dreck and ends with an open ending. And yet, again, underneath it, there's this sense of even the fact that we live in stories, we still live. It's hard to articulate, but it's powerfully articulated in your work. So I don't even know if anybody knows what I'm talking about right now.
I am so appreciative of this, Stuart, and I thank you very, very much. And thank you again for Ecstatic Cahoots. I'm so keen on the short. I'm reading them and writing them, and yours are so fluent and naked, which I said I'm teaching tomorrow, is hilarious, and such a great example of escalation. Anyway, I want to stop talking and hear you read for a bit.